Hello and welcome. I wanted to make this quick video on Tableau Prep. So Tableau Prep is a relatively new product. It came out in 2018, the start of 2018, and it helps you prepare files to then be analyzed in Tableau. And obviously that data preparation is a big part of analysts' work. It's where a lot of them spend a lot of their time rather than actually analyzing the data. So Tableau Prep is a product to help you speed up that process and make it more automated and more repeatable. So I'm going to give you, I suppose, a typical example of what I would come across of files that need to be prepared or something that's done week in, week out. And regardless of the data or the type of data, the problem still exists. So I'll just give you an example here. So I've got some basic fitness testing wellness scores, but these could be anything. They could be performance indicators, they could be GPS data. It really doesn't matter what the actual figures are across here. But this is probably something typically that I would see. This type of data either is coming from a system, or it might even be manually input, or it's manually gathered in some way. So we've got a date, we've got a player name, the session status, if they missed it or were modified, why, and then some test scores. So on its own, this is fine. We could go and take a bunch of data. Let's take body weights, for example, and we can go and create a bar chart just very simply in Excel, and we have a bar chart of everyone's scores. We can obviously tidy that up and do various things. But next month or next week, we come along and we have session 2. So we run a new session. We've got a similar list of players. We've got the scores, but this time the columns don't match. So E, for example, here is wellness index. If I go back to my session 1, it's body weight. So invariably what I see a lot of people do is they start to copy and paste. So I'll go and take these, copy, and go down under here and paste this in. And then I have to find out where's body weight in my second one. Okay, it's over here. So I go and take these scores. And I do this repeatedly. And then next week or the following day or whenever it is, I get a new set of results in. And I have to go and do all of that sort of messing again. And it's labor intensive. It's not what I don't think anyone signed up to be, whether you're GPS or fitness testing or performance analysis, anything like that. So with Tableau Prep, we can clean a lot of that data, tidy it up, reformat it so it's easier to visualize, easier to analyze, and that's what I want to show you here today. So I'm just going to close out of those files and not save them, and I'm going to open up Tableau Prep. So this is Tableau Prep, and there's loads of videos online about the basic interface and things like that. So just very quickly, on the right hand side there are some tutorials, some very good tutorials, and anything you've recently been working on will be in the middle here. You can download Tableau Prep, so there's a free trial, a 14-day free trial, or if you have Tableau, you're more than likely entitled to Tableau Prep for free, so it's worth checking that out. But I'm going to jump in and I'm just going to connect to that first file. So I'm going to jump to connect data. I'm going to click test session 1. Okay, so this is going to load in that first sheet within that file that I showed you. And this is the Tableau Prep interface. Okay, so we have in the sort of middle at the top, this white space is called a flow. So as we build out a workflow, this is what we're going to look at. And actually, I might just go back a step and I'll actually open what we're going to build. So we're going to end up with this sort of workflow here. So you can see we've inputted the data, we've cleaned it, pivoted, we've done various different things along, and then we can add an output at the end. Okay, so that's what a flow will look like finished, and you have each of these tools along the way that allow you clean and prep the data basically. So let's just go back and again we'll connect to an Excel file. I'm going to connect to this session 1, and I'll make these files available so if you want to follow along, you will be able to. So what we've got here is sheet 1, and we've got all our list of column headings here. Okay, so the first thing we'd like to do is add in the multiple files. So in my example, I have 3 sessions, but suppose there's 4, 5, 6, and 7 to come. How would we union all those without copying and pasting them, basically? So what we'd like to do is set up what's called a union. So essentially, you want to just drop the next set of data underneath the first set of data and so on. Now we could go and add a new connection, and let's just do it the manual way. So I can go and get session 2, and what I can do is if I drag and drop it just under session 1, you see I get this new union file, and I can drop it on, and it creates a union of all the files. And if I look for the mismatch fields, there are none. So everything is matched up, and I now have one clean set of data that contains both dates. So you can see session 1, session 2, and the 2 different dates. Okay, but I don't want to keep doing that every week or every day, so I'd rather just point Tableau Prep at a folder and say anything in there that meets this criteria, I just want you to union on. Okay, so what I can do is, instead of a single table here, I can click wildcard union. So it's looking in my sport folder where I've saved the first file. I want to include these files, so you could do an exclude of certain files, but I want to do an include. And the matching pattern, so I have a couple of options here. I can take out, let's say, all of that and just put in an asterisk. And what it will do is it'll find any Excel file in that folder, in that sport folder. And if I just scroll down, you'll see it's found benchmark test scores, Olympic, player position and age, test session 1, 2, 3. Now I don't want to find all of those. I'm only interested in finding the test session. But that's what the asterisk does. It will allow you sort of wildcard anything. But let's say I'm only interested in files that start with test session. So if I apply that now, you see I get 1, 2, and 3 in my list of files. And once I click apply, I'm now going to have all of this data in here. So again, I'll just add a profile step just to show you. So you can see I have the 3 dates, and then down the end I should have the 3 file paths. So session 1, session 2, session 3. Okay. And that means then if I save a new file called test session 4, for example, into that folder, this workflow will automatically pick that up. So all of that copy pasting that I had to do in Excel, I've now stopped doing. And if that's all you used Prep for, well then that's speeded up all of that. From an error point of view, from a time point of view, everything. It would speed up that whole process. It's also matched the columns. So I'm not getting any mismatches. So if I go along here, remember body weight was in a different file and so on. But I don't have multiple body weight fields or wellness index fields or anything like that. It's all pretty much lined up. Okay, so already a bit of a time saver there. The other thing that's fairly typical of manually entered data is, especially with names, free text fields, is that things can go wrong. So for example, I've got 3 test dates, and what Tableau is doing here, this is a profile pane here, and it's showing me that for each name, it's sort of created a bar chart. But I can see that for Catherine Jenkins here, I've only 1 row, Kath Vick, I've 1 row, Billy Josephs, I've 1, and I can see Billy spelt a different way where I have 2 rows. So this on the right hand side here gives me a profile of the data, and I can see very quickly, I should have 3 rows for everybody, but I can see there's certain things that aren't quite lining up or haven't been spelled consistently throughout all of my files. And this is very, very typical, but it can be time consuming to tidy up in a non-automatic way, I suppose, in a manual way. So within Tableau Prep, there's 3 ways I can tidy this up and group it. So just from this little drop down menu here, I'm going to go to group, and the first one I'm going to show you is manual selection. So manual selection is really what it does, what it says on the tin. So I can click Billy Josephs here, and I get a list of all the other members over here. And what I can do is, these are all grayed out, but I can go to Billy Josephs, and if I tick, it has now created a group. So you can see it's taken the first spelling, so the one I chose at the start, and it's given it this paperclip to show that it's a grouped field. And I could do the same. I could go down to where do we have Catherine Vick, so Kath Vick here, and on the right hand side I could tick Kath Vick there, and again that will group them. Okay, so I can manually go through and make those groups. I'm going to leave the other 2 just for a moment. I'm going to click done. As I'm working through with each each tool within the workflow, rather than every step being a new button or a new icon up here. What Tableau Prep does is it tracks the changes here on the left hand side. So if I was to add more changes in here, for example, I'm going to rename this null field here. I'm going to call that full, because that null actually means they did a full session. So I'm going to call it full, and what you can see is it's added in and it's tracked the changes along here. Okay. So it's not adding multiple tools across the top, which is nice because it keeps the workflow nice and tidy, and you can track what changes have been done over here. So I'm going to take out that manual grouping, and I'll just show you the other ones that are going on. So if I come down to group and replace, what I can do is choose this bottom one here, common characters, and that's based off an algorithm that'll look for common characters between words or phrases and try and match them together. Now in this case it hasn't done a wonderful job, so it hasn't matched the Billy Josephs. There's Katrina Jenkins. It did pick up the Kath Vick and the Vanessa Sykes down here. It did pick those ones up. So again, depending on the type of data you have, you'll have different uses for that. So let's just take that one out, and I'll do the last one, which is in this case pronunciation, which is probably a better one to use on names. And now it's matched everybody. So I can see Vanessa Sykes, the two K's or C's as they were in my data are tidied up. And on this profile, this little blue bar here, I can see that they all look identical. So they're all 3 rows, which is exactly what I want. And click done to that. So 3 ways of just grouping the data, either in a manual or an automatic way, depending on the data set you have and the type of data. But again, much quicker to be able to spot the errors and see where you're missing data, rather than sometimes in Excel you might have a habit of building something and then realizing you've done an average score, but then later on you find out one of the names was misspelt, so it wasn't included and things like this. Tableau Prep gives you that idea where you can see the data quite quickly. Another step we might add in here is so we've got the date, but let's take out the session number. So this is 1, 2, and 3. So we'd like to take out just that 1, 2, and 3, for example. So I can go in here, this little drop down, and what I can do is I can split the values. And I also have an icon. If I click on the cell here, I have an icon up here to do the same. So an automatic or a custom. Let's do a custom. I'm going to do a space, and I want the last field. And it has added it at the start. Okay, so you can see I got 1, 2, and 3, and we might do another split off that. Again, let's do an automatic. Yeah, and it's taken the first file. So again, these are things I don't need now, so I don't want that. Let's remove that field. And did I have the file path? So again, I no longer need that in there. I now have this up here, which I can rename to be my session ID. Okay, so I have the dates, but I also know that this was the first, the second, the third. So if next year I run a session in January, but it might be the 3rd session or the 2nd session in January, so I can use it like that. So you can see everything's been tracked within the one tool, which is great. The next thing I want to do now is I really want to pivot this data. So generally when we create stuff in Excel, if I just open it back up, we create it as it's to be read, I suppose, by a human being. So this sort of makes sense in a summary table. So we've got Angela here, and we can look across our scores, and we can sort of scan down here to see scores along a particular metric. But from a computer point of view, or from an analysis point of view, what's much better is to have this data stripped out into having a row for each test for each person. So this should be a row. Okay, and then I should have exactly the same data, but just with this as a row. Okay, so this is body weight, this is soreness. Okay, and again, what we want to take is the same data down. Okay, so I want to keep everything the same, but I want the data to be long and thin rather than wide. Okay. So that's what we do when we're pivoting the data. So this is a summary table, which is fine, but actually we want Tableau to be able to recognize the data in a long format. Okay, and for that we can use what's called pivot. So I'm going to go in here and add a pivot. And what pivot will do is it'll leave some columns and then it'll pivot the others. So it'll make, instead of going, at the moment we've 78 rows across our 3 tables, but we want a row per person, per date, per test. Okay, so what we want to do is basically all of the numerical fields we want to pivot. So I'm going to drag and drop them onto the pivot values. And I'm just going to create a step here just to show you. So if I click on Angela, I'm going to click on just control click on a single date, and what I can do now is I can profile the data. So this is filtering the data by selecting. So I've picked one person on one date just to show you now what the data looks like. So we've got one date and we've got each session status, the player involved, and the test result and the test name. Okay, so that's exactly what I want. So let me just double check that I've done. So session ID, I don't want to pivot. So that's fine. So I can drag that back out, and you can see how quickly you can iterate among it. And the next thing is it's called these Tableaus automatically rename these pivot 1 names and pivot 1 values, but let's rename those ourselves. So rename, so this is going to be test name, and this is going to be test score. Okay, so that makes more sense to me. So we've test score, test name, the session ID, the date, the player, the session status, and table names. Again, just remove that. We don't need that. Okay, some nice clean data. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I've got some benchmark scores. So actually the next thing is the position. So I've got the position and the age of the players. I'll just show you this file here now. So I've got each player, I've got what position they play and what age they play. Now again, traditionally, if I go back to my test scores, if I wanted to add this in here, so if I wanted an age column in here and a position column in here, I'd have to do some sort of VLOOKUP. So I'd have to go off, find this value in this table and return column 2 as an exact match. And I get, sorry, in that case I get the position, but you get the idea. Okay, and I'd have to keep doing that, and I'd have to do that again for session 2 and session 3. So rather than doing it that way, which is painful, let's do it in Tableau Prep with what's called a join. So we're going to add in a new set of data. So again, it's an Excel file, and it's this player position and age. And what we simply want to do is join this data on. So if you use a VLOOKUP in Excel, what you're really looking at here is a join. So I'm just going to drag and drop this onto the end of my current workflow, and I'm going to drop it into where it says new join. Okay, it creates a new color. So we've got a blue stream and a yellow stream, and it's going to create now a green stream. So we've some idea what's going on. And what Tableau has done here is, on my join settings, is it's already picked up that player equals player, which is how we want to join it on in this case. So for each player in this, we wanted to find the player in here and give us the age and the position. Okay, and what Tableau is really good at, in this case, Tableau Prep is really good at, I really like this feature, is that it's showing you what type of join it's done, and I can make that a left join if I want, so you can see join type is left, but it's showing you what's matched and what hasn't matched. And I'm going to show you an example of where that's important now in a second. But this is really useful for people who aren't used to working with joins. Who used to maybe use VLOOKUPs and things like that. It's really good for showing you what has been included. So this is basically saying from clean to, which is this step here, everything is matched with everything from this sheet here, which is the players and the positions. So if I add a step on here just to show you the data now, you'll see at the far end for each player, I have now the position and the age. Okay, so again, a couple of things to tidy up. I'm going to take out, that's a duplicate, so player 1 is a duplicate, so I'm going to remove that field because I already have it here. And I think that's the only thing on that. Yeah, so I now have position and age added to my columns. And again, keep in mind that if I add a new session in here, in my folder, it's just going to pass through this workflow whenever I run it. Okay, so really useful to learn about joins and things like that. The next thing I have is a file called benchmark scores. So these are benchmark test scores that we've set for our team. Okay, so for each position, each test has its own score. But again, the data isn't quite structured how I'd like it. We have it going across instead of going long. So I should have just 3 columns. So I should have position, I should have test name, and I should have test benchmark. That's how I want my data structured. So it's running like this rather than across like this. Okay, but again, we can quite quickly do that. So we won't save that. Back to prep. So again, I'm going to add in a new Excel sheet, this benchmark test score. So here it is here with all the columns. And immediately what we want to do is pivot this data. Okay, so we want to get it to be long. So again, I'm leaving the position alone, but all of my numeric fields I'm going to pivot. And if I just add a step here just to show you what that looks like, profile this. So we've got the test, the value, and the position. Okay, and again, let's just rename these so they make sense. So this is test name. This is our benchmark score. And this is position, which is fine. Okay, so back up to my main flow. What I want here is, if you imagine, for each of these, so we've got Angela, body weight, and her test score. And what I really want on the end of this is what the benchmark for her position should be. So what is the midfield body weight benchmark score? That's what I want to add on the end. And again, you'll be doing this with a VLOOKUP if you were using Excel. So we're going to do a join again. So I'm going to drag and drop this onto the end with a new join. Tableau Prep will rearrange my flow so it makes sense. Okay, so on first look, if I click show mismatch values, nothing shows. So everything seems to have joined. Looks really good. Position equals position. That makes sense. I now have 5,000 rows. 4,992. But that doesn't seem right. If I go back to my main flow here, I've only got 624. So I had 3 test results, 3 test files. I've only 624 records. So why have I ended up with nearly 5,000 here? That has to do with the way the join is working. So at the moment, it's only based on position. So wherever defender is in one, it'll match defender in the other. And that gives us duplicate records. So what we want to do is add in a join clause that says, I'm interested in the position and the test score. Because at the moment, it's not matching on test score. It's only matching when, sorry, test name. It's only matching when the position equals the position. And that's giving us duplicate records. So what I want to do is say when the position and the test name are the same, then join. And you can see now I get 624 records. Okay, and again I have an inner join. A left join won't make any difference here, but I tend to use a left join just in case. And we've got 624 records from the green, which is what we want, and 40 from this pinky color that I've joined on. So everything looks like it has matched. Suppose I want to go back now and add in, so there's some sort of calculated fields that I need to add in, like a weighted wellness score or something like that. Again, we can jump back to any stage in the workflow. So I can jump back to here and I can add in a calculated field. So I'm going to create a calculated field. Sorry to any sports scientists out here, but I'm just going to make, so I'm going to take soreness plus fatigue plus stress. So let's say they're my 3 fields. These are some combination score. We're going to add them and divide by 3 to get some sort of average across those 3 fields. So I'm going to click save. And again, because it's running the workflow automatically, it's passing each one of these through the workflow. So I just need to check my pivot. I can see this weighted wellness hasn't pivoted. So I'm just going to drop that on and make sure that that passes through. And then when I get to the end, I do now see that I have a mismatch. So there's defender, these weighted wellnesses for each position haven't matched with a benchmark score, and that's because it's not in the benchmark. So just to show you again a little bit on the join, if I just had an inner join, if I just have an inner join, you can see what's included is the 624 records that have come from here and whatever it's matched to. So my join result is 624 records. Because there is no wellness benchmark score, this inner join has ignored. So it's only found something where these two overlap. If I select this green circle, so this is what's called a left join, it means I'm getting all of the information from the left, even if it didn't find a match. And those 78 records didn't find a match, which in this case is what I want. So even though I'm missing a benchmark score, that's okay. I still want it from the left. Okay. Again, we can just add a step just to clean up our data. So again, profile. So I don't need test name 1. That looks okay. So we've got a benchmark, a test score, test name, session ID, and position 1. Again, I don't need that because we've got the position already in here. Okay. Position is already there. Okay, so this looks pretty good. Again, what you can do from here is add an output and save this as a file. I'm just going to right click and preview in Tableau Desktop just to show you then how we could quickly go about building something. So remember, this is union the 3 files. It's joined on a benchmark file. It's also joined on a position and age file. So stuff that we can keep. So let's just build something nice and simple. So I'm just going to take one player at a time, for example. So let's take that player. We can take the date. We want the month. So we've got our 3 tests. Let's take the test name and the test score. Okay, let's make this the entire view. So these are our test scores across the 3 months that we've done, or the 3 tests that we've done, and where they lie. We also have these benchmark scores. So it'd be nice to be able to maybe compare to the benchmark. So let's drop the benchmark score on. And this is going to be a dual axis. So I'm just going to make sure that our test scores stay as a bar. Our next ones I'm going to make a circle. So what we can do now is just quickly dual axis and make sure that they're synchronized. And let's turn off the header there. Okay. So I don't want any color on those. Let's make them black and let's increase the size a little bit. So that looks okay. Let's get rid of the color for now. Okay, so we can see we've got a bar for where their test was, and then this benchmark score that we're hoping to hit. But maybe let's have the colors updated based on that. So above. So I'm just going to say test score greater than benchmark score. So this will just return a true or a false. So it's true if we're above and false if we're below. So I can click OK. And let's drop that above benchmark figure onto my color. Let's just change the colors here. So we do have a null because we didn't have a benchmark for the weighted wellness, so we can leave that alone. Let's make true green, false red, click OK and apply. And last thing, let's just show the player name as a filter, as a single value drop down. So now I can see in terms of body weight who has hit target. I could drop down to a different player and all the colors update. My benchmark figures should be always the same, but my underlying scores will be different as I flick through. Okay, so a very quick way to show Tableau Prep. I can obviously save that. I can add an output now. I'm happy with that and save the file. But next month or next week when I come along and add in a new session, I don't have to go through trawling through names to check that they're right. I don't have to pivot the data or do VLOOKUPs or anything like that. I'm not creating a master sheet where everything sits. I'm allowing Tableau Prep to do all of that work, and then when I open it up in Tableau, I can quickly see and create my tables. So even, for example, if I wanted to create that sort of summary table, it's quite quick. I can drop player, we can put test name up there. Let's filter to session ID, for example. A date, let's take take the first date. So we know that that's the first date, and we can drop the test scores. And there's our table back to what we had in Excel, but I've much more flexibility now in terms of, because of the data structure and what I've done in Tableau Prep. So hopefully that's useful. As I said, you can go and play about it yourselves. You can download a free trial, and I'll make these those test sheets that I used available if you want to use them. So thanks very much.